Hey, I've just watched a video which I assume was from this past Boxing Day because it said protester. The video was entitled "Protesters Meet Boxing Day Fox Hunt," and the footage looked pretty recent. I guess it was somewhere in Wales. I'm not sure exactly, but basically, it's a scene that's become very familiar in parts of the countryside. Group of protesters standing at the roadside as a hunting group went past. The protesters had placards. They weren't being particularly violent. In fact, I wouldn't say they were being violent at all. They were holding placards. They were shouting "Shame on you." Now, I have to say, on this issue, my sympathies lie with the protesters, and I'm going to explain why. That's certainly not always the case. Often I feel that protesters sometimes polarize their own campaign by tactics they use. Um, Basically, I'm against fox hunting 100%. There's no question about that. And it's important to understand some of the situation here, just for international viewers or for anyone, really. Fox hunting has been illegal in Britain since 2004, right? So it's against the law to hunt foxes with dogs. That's just the law. If you don't like the law, then peacefully campaign to change it. But the fact is, fox hunting is illegal, and I believe it is one of the best things the Blair administration done. It was a progressive move to end a totally unnecessary blood sport. And let's be clear what fox hunting is. Again, maybe get a bit of light here. Okay. Again, maybe for international viewers. So basically, fox hunting is an old British sport, so called, where a group of people dress up in sort of red tunics, hunting gear. They get on horses. They get a pack of dogs, usually beagles, and they hunt down a fox. They chase the fox till it's exhausted. The dogs then basically tear the fox to shreds. And this is fun. Now, there's a few things that piss me off about the fox hunt lobby. Um, I wouldn't be as zealous as some anti-hunt protesters. I wouldn't probably not go out and try to stop, try to actively protest. But the attitude and just the general attitude of the hunt lobby pisses me off. Number one, their excuses. They claim that it's about pest control. This is a pathetic lie. It's not about pest control because most people would be totally understanding of a farmer using firearms or using traps or something like that to protect their livestock. I have heard about foxes causing real problems with chicken coops. Um, so I'm not naive. Foxes are carnivores, they can eat livestock. And obviously, that costs the farmer financially. So I think most people would agree that a farmer has every right to protect his or her livestock. But that is not what fox hunting is about, and it pisses me off that they use that as an excuse. That was never the excuse before the ban. So why are they using it now? Um, Number two, it's a tradition. Well, there is a place for traditions. I do think that traditions are important. They're part of a country's culture. But that doesn't mean each and every tradition is okay. It doesn't mean each and every tradition should be unquestioned above scrutiny. The reason fox hunting was banned in 2004 was because there was overwhelming public support for a ban. And that is true of the city and the rural areas. Now, granted, probably the percentage is a lot higher in urban areas, but it sort of brings me to my next point. The hunt lobby claim that they alone represent countryside views, and they always have this disparaging way of saying, "Oh, the townies don't understand," and they have a whole range of adjectives to describe people who are against fox hunting. Um, but I refuse to believe it's as black and white as the city versus the country. A lot of these protesters are not city people; they're also country people. So I think it's very arrogant of the hunt lobby to say that they alone represent the countryside. And I think the Countryside Alliance as an organization made a big mistake by making this their priority. The countryside, rural areas do face issues that we in cities, I've mostly lived in cities in my life, don't necessarily understand, or at least can't directly relate to. So I think there's a lot of legitimate grievances. I mean, the countryside suffered badly from foot and mouth and from other areas. So they certainly have legitimate issues, but making fox hunting at or near the top of their priorities was just plain stupid. It was like shooting themselves in the foot because the majority of people don't support it. Now, if they had talked about, let's say, the rural economy or other issues affecting people in the countryside, I think there would have been wider sympathy. But as it stood, how did that come across? It lent into the stereotype that there are a bunch of country toffs who like tearing defenseless animals to shreds. Um, as a stereotype of country people, which of course is not true, because I think that the hunt lobby doesn't represent all country people. I don't want to get into percentages, I don't know, but I would imagine that a sizable portion of the countryside is also against it. Probably a higher proportion is for it. I just don't get the how anyone could take pleasure for seeing an animal torn to shreds like that. This is not hunting for food. This is not hunting for survival. It's hunting for sheer fun, and it's whatever way you look at it, it's just cruel and unnecessary. And it pisses me off that the hunt lobby always deride their opponents as left wing hippies. Firstly, left wing. Well, this idea that everyone who's against fox hunting is left wing is utter nonsense. I know conservative members in London who are against fox hunting. I know many people on the centre and the right who are against fox hunting. So to dismiss it as all a bunch of, I mean, this video was, tense scenes. There was a lot of shoving going on, a lot of shouting, and the comments just some predictable right wing blowhards. Oh, it's all a bunch of snowflakes. It's a bunch of feminists. It's a bunch of this, that, and the other. That's the way they respond to any sort of debate because they can't actually debate. They can't actually debate the issues, so they resort to these narrow pigeonholing stereotypes. Now, they might say, oh, but you're doing that to the fox hunt lobby. Well, I would contend they're a relatively small group of people. They don't represent all country people, and frankly, they lend negative stereotypes to themselves. If you are going on a so called sport to tear apart animals for fun, and then you use thuggish tactics, and I've seen these fox hunters, spit on people. I've seen men punch women. Um, I think they're scumbags, to be quite honest, and have no respect for them, none whatsoever. I mean, and this brings me to the point about the legality. Now, I think the police should be enforcing that law a lot more. I have heard it said that the fox hunt lobby they just follow scents. So they get up in their gear and they get the dogs to follow a scent. I'm skeptical of that. And the reason being is because they are so passionate about keeping this so called sport that I think they will find any way to skirt around the law and continue fox hunting. And I think the police, for whatever reason, are reluctant to enforce this. So that's making the hunt lobby complacent and they're just doing it. I mean, if they really insist on getting in all the, the red tunics and all the rest of it for tradition, that's fine. I wouldn't oppose that. Just don't kill a defenseless fox. It's hardly a level playing field, is it? It's hardly a level sport when you have a dozen people on horseback, wherever it is, 20 dogs against one fox. It's hardly a fair sport. Um, so I'm a little bit sick and tired of these, and let's be honest, they are predominantly right wing. Well, they're right wing. It's just, that's what they are. They're very conservative, and they say it's about tradition. You know what else was a tradition in Britain? Public hangings was once a tradition. People would go literally have picnics and watch a public hanging. Witch burning. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Witch burning was a public tradition. So just because something's a tradition doesn't mean it's okay. And I just cannot understand the mentality. You don't have to be a tree hugger to see that it's wrong. To see that tearing a defenseless animal to shreds is wrong. We are not talking about farmers shooting a fox or leaving traps to protect their livestock. That's understandable. They need to protect their livestock. But when the hunt lobby uses that as an excuse, they're deluded if they think anyone's going to believe that. And it's I just don't get their mindset. I don't get how anyone can take pleasure from that, and they're proud of it. It's not like they're even ashamed of it and they're trying to, do it underground or something. They will boast about it. And I frankly would conclude they're just very sick people. And more often than not, people who enjoy these sort of blood sports actually lack compassion for fellow human beings as well. You would probably find the same people would look down on the homeless and think that all people on welfare are lazy dole scroungers, and they basically have an Ebenezer Scrooge attitude to just about everyone. I am not saying they're all individually evil people, but I think this part of their personality, taking pleasure from inflicting mindless cruelty, I think it's sick. Here in China, there's the so-called Yulin Dog Festival. Even many Chinese people are against it. It's cruel. It's unnecessary. Um, I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say, "Oh, killing animals is wrong." I eat meat, but that's eating meat as a food. It's not watching an animal torn to shreds for fun. There is a big difference. Um, and I just like to see the police enforcing this because, as it stands, I think there's this attitude that they're poor victims of um, protesters, but they're not. They're basically offenders. If they are actually hunting the fox, they claim they're following a scent. I'm skeptical of that. If they're actually hunting the fox, they are, by definition, offenders. That's putting it mildly. As far as I'm concerned, they're criminals. And it's the law needs to be enforced on these thugs because that's what they very often are. Now, one last thing about the protests, I don't exactly agree with the tactics. I wouldn't, for example, favour someone running up to a horse and grabbing it by the stirrup, frightening the horse. And as much as I dislike fox hunters, if someone fell off a horse and they got permanently paralysed, that would be a very ugly situation. So I don't favour that approach. I think it's a bit reckless, but I can understand their anger because these arrogant hunters are blatantly disobeying the law and they're getting away with it. So why are rural police forces not enforcing this? I think they need to start answering questions. We can't have double standards. We can't have a situation where people in the countryside are basically committing offences and getting away with it, but elsewhere that might not be the case. So anyway, yeah, this is an opinionated video. I think it's wrong. I'm not going to pretend I'm neutral. I think it's a cruel blood sport and I don't understand the mindset of those who defend it. And that's it. And I would like to see the police enforcing this. If you defend it, at least don't lie. Don't say it's about pest control because it's not. It's because you think that it's fun to watch a fox torn to shreds and it's not a level playing field. We're not talking about, for example, a boxing match where two men have trained for weeks, months, where it's a level playing field. It's a blood sport, but at least it's a fair blood sport. Fox hunting is not.